Hello, welcome back to Fluff It, the podcast by furries for furries. I'm Uno, I'm a raccoon from the United Kingdom.
And I am Felix, and I am a wolf from the good old United States. And welcome back, everyone, and to our new viewers, welcome to Fluff It. Now, before we get to today's topic, we wanted to actually make a special announcement, and this will be regarding with Megaplex, a furry convention in Orlando, Florida, this August. And unfortunately, we won't be both coming to Megaplex. I will be there all day. So if anyone watching the podcast wants to stop by and say hi, I would be more than happy to meet up and talk with y'all for a couple of minutes. And I think I am actually going to be trying to interview people about Megaplex and the furry fandom at the convention. So I know that one of our viewers will already be down at Megaplex, so I'm super excited to see how Fluff It does at Megaplex and what people we can get on the podcast, or at least talk with us for a few minutes.
Yeah, so I won't be at Megaplex this year, unfortunately. I wish I could be. Hopefully sometime in future, but as Felix said, feel free to stop by and have a chat. And for today's topic for the podcast, we will be talking about making friends in the furry fandom, which I know can be quite difficult because I think a lot of furries, myself included, are quite introverted. So we'll be kind of going over a few different ways of making friends and just kind of our own experiences and how you can go about finding friends within the fandom.
Yes, there are a ton of ways. Some I feel like are better than others, but we will be going over each and every one that we can think of, and talk about how we feel about it and what's the best way to interact with furries, because this is a fandom full of very colorful and amazing people, but it can be quite challenging as a lot of furries have social anxiety and are quite introverted. So we hope that what we talk about today will be helpful and allow you to maybe try something new that you haven't, or consider something that you haven't already. Now, one of the easiest ways that furries can meet another and talk with another is online, and that's either if you are on a art site such as Fur Affinity, Instagram, DeviantArt, or whatnot, or a more social media site, kind of like a Facebook, a Discord, Twitter. There are tons of websites out there full of furries that are posting and sharing their fluffy thoughts and art.
Yeah, so there's so many online websites that are kind of helpful for furries. So my personal favorite is Instagram, which is the mobile app where you can post, well, anything really. I use it to post my fursuit work and my artwork and stuff. And the reason that's my favorite is because it's so easy to access. I can just do it all from my phone. I can share all my work and look at other people's work. It's just so easy to use and like quick to send messages and things. I'm a little bit probably not the best person to give advice on this because I'm absolutely hopeless at starting conversations, which is something I'm trying to get better with. But the way I often make friends is they just kind of appear. Like sometimes somebody will just start talking to me and we just get along. And I mean, sometimes you get people messaging you who just occasionally I'll get a message that's just hi, and then I'll just kind of say hi back and it goes nowhere. But then occasionally I'll meet someone who I actually end up getting on with. And because I'm a artist and maker who does commissions as well, I've actually made quite a few good friends through commissions. So obviously I'm very professional with everyone. I don't like intend to be friends with all of my customers, but sometimes we'll just end up having a conversation and they just kind of stick around as my friends. So my way of going about it online is really just letting people come to me, but I am trying to get better at kind of starting conversations and getting out there a bit more. So yeah, it definitely can be quite difficult, but also I think with the amount of different apps and sites and stuff, there's a lot of opportunities. I think even if you are very introverted, you'll find someone to talk to.
Yes, there are a ton of people. I primarily use Instagram too, and I actually discovered it on the furry side because of Uno through an art trade back in 2020, I believe. And that's how I met Uno, was through a commission. Now, I knew Uno's art for a few years before I commissioned her, but it was a very wonderful experience getting that fursuit made. And we've done a couple of art trades, and it blossomed into this wonderful friendship. And I definitely like Instagram too, because I feel like you can post a lot of furry things, but it's also a site where you can just direct message people. I know a lot of furries like Discord, which you can have these servers with a lot of organization of chats, and a lot of people on a single server, which I find immensely cool to see all these like furry discords to have over tens of thousands of viewers, or not viewers, tens of thousands of members. I'm particularly someone who doesn't like that type of stuff. This because I'm very much a. It's funny because I'm an extrovert, but I can get very introverted in large group chats, and I'm just someone who particularly likes to just discuss things with this a single person or this a small group of people. So I'm very much like you, Uno, in that it's hard for me to start conversations and outreach people, but I remember reaching out to you, reaching out to Simon, who's one of my other furry friends, and just seeing your art, and it just allowed these friendships to begin, and it's just amazing where they've gone.
Yeah, like I completely agree because I mean I'm very, very similar in that like I just don't like group chats. And like I think the group chats, especially Discord, they are really cool and it's really good to see so many people using them. But at the same time, I just can't do it. I just can't like talk in a group chat. I just kind of feel a little bit intimidated by it, which if any of the listeners feel the same way, like it's totally fine. Like I think a lot of people are like us. That's probably why we get along so well because
Yes.
we're very similar in that way. We just like to kind of talk one to one or in a much smaller group.
Yeah.
I would say I'm very kind of both introverted and extroverted. I'm sort of extroverted with one or two people, but when it comes to a group, I'm very, very quiet. But
That's me.
I think the way that there's so many, I mean, the good thing about there being so many different sites and so many different like messaging apps and stuff is that there is kind of a way for everyone. So if you're really
Yes.
extroverted, you like a big crowd, a big group, you can use Discord or group chats. Or if you're kind of more introverted, you just like one-on-one conversations, you can kind of find people who you get along with just through Instagram or even the older art sites like DeviantArt and Fur Affinity. I definitely have a few friends on there. So those can be really good as well.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. There is a ton of options out there, and if you're someone who likes one-on-one chats or large group chats, there's a ton of options. Now, the one thing I did want to touch about is online safety, because while there are tons of amazing furries out there, you still want to use online safety. And it's unfortunate that we have to still talk about online safety, but there are a lot of things that happen on each of these social media sites. So just be incredibly careful with who you talk to, what you share to people, and if someone's making you uncomfortable, or if a server or a place is making you feeling uneasy, don't feel any pressure to just leave and get out there, because your mental health and your comfort needs to be prioritized when you are chatting online with people, especially those you haven't seen in person before.
Yeah, I totally agree. So like you said, I mean, I think if if something just feels off, to be honest, it probably is. If it's making you feel off, there's probably is something off. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with just, blocking people. I mean, don't go blocking everyone, obviously, but I think the good thing about online communities and apps and websites is that you can block people or you can just restrict them and you're not forced to keep talking to them, which I think
Yes.
is a really good feature. And as well, like a thing that I normally do myself is if I think I'm really getting along with someone online and I think there's like I could potentially see them in person, maybe at an event or if we plan on meeting up, I'll usually at least try to do like a video chat, obviously like whatever works for you. But Felix and I did a kind of video call before we really started the podcast or anything. And that just really, it gives you a much, much better idea of what that person's actually like and who they are. And it can make you feel a lot better about meeting up in person, because you know who you're meeting up with. So
Yes.
it's just much, much safer. And similar to that as well, if you do plan on meeting someone in person, it's a good idea to do it at an event or at a really busy place. So, for example, the first time I met an online friend was quite a long time ago. I was only 16 at the time, but we had already had video chats, and I met them in Leeds, which was very, very busy. It was for a fur meet. So it was a very safe environment with lots of people. And my parents dropped me off to make sure that I was okay and that the people I was meeting were okay. So yeah, just basic stuff really that I just think it's worth mentioning, because you really can't be too careful. Obviously, you don't have to be super like suspicious of everyone, because most people are probably going to be fine, but it's just worth being careful.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with everything you said there. I mean, when I first met someone in real life from online, it was actually at Disney Springs. And I felt super comfortable there just because there's security checkpoints, there's tons of people, and someone's probably not going to cause trouble if they were going to cause trouble at Disney, out of all places. Or because the mouse is always watching and Disney security will come out of nowhere. It is amazing how fast they can come and apprehend someone. But I digress. Yeah, I mean, with this online safety, this be mindful of who you're talking to and what you're talking about. Again, like what Uno said, mostly everyone is going to be very friendly, very chill, but just make sure that you are practicing online safety when you are going to meet someone in person and planning to do stuff with them. But on the topic of meeting people in real life, on a more lighter side of things, one great way to meet new furry friends is to do actual furry events. So wherever you are in the world, particularly if you're someone in Europe, Oceania, North America, and places such as Southeast Asia and Japan, I know there are a ton of fur meets that happen locally around places, and then there are tons of furry conventions that happen around the world. I have, for example, I'm from Georgia, and there's a lot of local furry groups, and we have one of the largest furry conventions in our state. So there are tons of places and activities that you can do as a furry to meet and get to know people. And I would definitely encourage people to do go to the furry conventions, because they are filled with tons of things for all kinds of furries. Either if you're an artist, you're a gamer, if you want to listen to people talk, are you someone that likes performances, if you'd like to see fursuits and galore, I could go on and on. And I'm super excited about going to Megaplex. It's been a long time, but there are tons of places and things out there that you as a furry can experience, and I highly recommend that. These are great places to meet people. Kind of going back very quickly to online safety from social media, is it's a good, safe environment.
Yeah, I totally agree. So I have actually surprisingly never been to a furry convention yet. I really want to, but I mean, in the UK, we only have, I think, 3. And one of them is incredibly expensive, and the other 2 are extremely far away. So I've never been, but I do want to. I'd like to go to an American one, really. But we do have local fur meets. We have fur meets pretty much in every city, and I go to a local one, or I did before the pandemic. Went to a local one every month, and I found that was a brilliant way to make friends, because I often find it in person just a little bit easier than online, because you can kind of read the situation a bit more in person. I just find it a bit easier to kind of, if I'm in the same room as someone with a really cool fursuit, it's a lot easier for me to walk over to them and say, hey, I really like your suit, rather than like messaging someone to say that. I just think it's easier to kind of read the situation. But the way I normally go about it is, if I meet someone at a fur meet or at a comic convention or a steampunk event, any of those kind of events, if I really am getting along with someone, I'll kind of ask for their Instagram, and then that kind of keeps you in touch. So then you can message them and just say like, hey, it's good to meet you today, or are you coming to the next event, or whatever. It's just kind of, for me personally, I find it a really good way to kind of start off the kind of friendship in a way, because I definitely have a few friends who I've met at the fur meets, and then we've started talking online and kind of arranged to meet up at other times and just to hang out and stuff. And I just think that's, for me, is the easiest way to go about it. Yeah.
Or I definitely need to take you to a furry convention here
Yeah,
in the
I
United
really want
States.
to
I mean,
go.
honestly, if I could, I would fly over there and take you to Megaplex or Furry Week in Atlanta. But hopefully by next year or the year after,
Yeah,
we can both go to the furry convention, and maybe we can hopefully do a podcast recording or like panel. I think that would be
yeah.
amazing. But we definitely need to take you to a furry convention.
Yeah, I think
We're
as well,
missing
because
so
I
much.
mean I've wanted to go for so long, like literally years. But I think as well, doing stuff for the podcast is kind of like my incentive to say, okay, now I have an excuse to go.
I because I knew about furry conventions. I've only been to one. I would have gone to more if it wasn't for the pandemic, cursed
Yeah,
pandemic. But I've been to Furry Week in Atlanta, but it was my friend from Germany who introduced me to a lot of the furry convention stuff. I've seen a lot of things about Eurofurence, and it just seems so amazing, but I don't know whenever or when I will ever have the chance to do that one, or Confuzzled, which is one in the UK, but definitely recommend it. And you will definitely regret it if you don't go to a furry convention at some point.
yeah,
And then one last thing I think we both wanted to touch upon was you're already our IRL friends that are not furries. I'm not advocating forcing the conversion of the non-furries into furries, but your friends definitely introduce them to the furry fandom, because you might never know if and when they will become furries. Because I was petrified of telling my parents, hey, I want a fursuit, or hey, I want to be a furry. But over time, I'm not saying my parents are not furries, but it was my mother who told me about Furry Week in Atlanta. It was actually from an art teacher I had. She posted about it. And then when I did my Christmas cards last year with drawing everyone in the family as a fursona, my extended family is like, that's cool. I want a fursona. I want to be a furry. So now I have a bunch of extended family members wanting their own fursonas. So people, I mean, the great thing about the furry fandom is that there's so much out there that a lot of people from different likes and places could be a furry. And it could be something like a shared love for Zootopia, or a shared love for performing that might convince a friend, hey, I actually want to try out being a furry.
yeah. I totally agree. So I've got a few IRL friends who have been converted into furries. A lot of my, well, pretty much all of my friends before I joined the fandom really were either from college or just from high school. And a couple of them now are technically furries. I mean, one of them has their own fursuit and fursona. A couple of the others aren't as much into the fandom, but they definitely have fursonas and are kind of into some of the art and some of the people and stuff. So um, like what you were saying, I definitely think there really is kind of someone for everyone in terms of making friends in the fandom, because there's just so many different kinds of people. I'm also really into steampunk, which is another kind of cosplay type community. And I've made friends within the steampunk community who have also turned out to also be into furry stuff or have kind of got into it. I had a friend, well, have a friend who I met at steampunk who was kind of into it, but had just never had the chance to actually do it until we kind of became friends. So it's really good to just get to know people, and you might not hit it off with everyone, but anyone could be a furry or be converted, and not not saying that like you need to convert all your friends
Convert.
into being furries, but yeah, I definitely think it's worth kind of sharing it, provided I mean, if your friends are going to be mean about it, then they aren't
Yeah, I
really your
mean,
friends anyway. But yeah,
yeah, no, I agree. I mean, if someone's gonna be very judgmental about you being a furry, I mean, you shouldn't really be talking to that person. That's
yeah,
because that's the type of person that's gonna be very judgmental and will probably judge you for other things other than this being a furry. I mean, I don't have any friends that are not already furries that have become furries. I have a couple of friends who definitely do have seen my fursuit and we've talked about the furry fandom a little bit. And then it's funny because while I've not converted anyone at my college to be a furry, when I did pitch Fluff It to the class, it definitely picked up the attention of a few students. And the professor that taught me podcasting is listening to this podcast, which she might very well be. I hope that she found the furry fandom to be very fascinating and interesting. And this talking to her, it seemed like there was a lot of similarities on her background with yours, with the puppeteering and the
yeah.
theater. And I think it's just really cool to introduce the furry fandom to people that might not know it very well, because while they might not turn out to be furries themselves, it could be something that they could appreciate and find very interesting.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. So, like I was saying before, a lot of my kind of local friends who I know through college and school, they aren't all necessarily furries themselves, but they definitely all kind of have at least a little bit of an interest in it, just kind of from the point of view of the fact that like making fursuits is pretty much what I do for a living at the moment. So a lot of them are just very, very supportive and just kind of interested in it, even though they aren't actually properly into it. But yeah, I just think it's such an interesting fandom, and like it's just there's so much to it, and I think so many people would be interested in it, even if they aren't actually a part of it themselves.
Yeah, definitely 100% agree. I mean, I'm hoping that by the end of my college career, I can convert a few people, but I'm not gonna go furry inquisition people. No one expects the furry inquisition. But it's just really cool when you do meet people in person that do become furries, and it just becomes a very easy it becomes very simple to go up to that person and talk about furries. Because and I do feel like a big part of it, especially at colleges and schools and even workplaces, I do feel like people are very much afraid to talk about the furry fandom just because of the unfair perception it has. And I definitely do feel like once I shared that I was a furry to people and accepted that, hey, if people actually are genuine and would want to be people I want to be around with, I don't have to worry about them knowing that I'm a furry. So I definitely felt a lot more comfortable talking to people about being a furry once I kind of just accepted, hey, if they're going to be mean about it, they're not even worth
Yeah.
and definitely pitching the podcast to a class full of students definitely made myself feel a lot more comfortable, especially with I wasn't really surprised, but I was at the same time that it actually perked a lot of interest. I was thinking maybe it might get a few votes here, but it won the class by a large scale. But at the same time, with Fluffit, that couldn't have been possible without you and the professor that taught me that. So thank you again.
Yeah, that's really nice to hear actually, because as well, like I mean, I always really liked this is kind of a little bit off topic now, but I've always liked the idea of doing like a furry podcast. And I think like obviously because like we get along really well and this is working really well doing the podcast and stuff, I just think it's that is kind of an example of all the really good things that can come out of making friends in the fandom, because obviously if we hadn't spoke to each other, then this podcast wouldn't have existed. So it's like that's just one example of the many, many good points of making friends. You know, you'll get so many opportunities to collaborate, whether that's on artwork, podcasts, videos, all kinds of stuff. And I mean, another thing that kind of links onto that is that like a lot of friends that I've made within the fandom are kind of now not just limited to the fandom. So, for example, one of my friends who I actually met through the furry fandom, I was hanging out with a few days ago just to like go and watch a movie and just travel a bit and stuff. So it can link onto, you know, having a friendship outside of just the fandom, which I think is really nice, because there's a lot of fandoms where you don't really get that. You're just kind of friends within that one fandom and not really outside of it. But I think with furries, because there's so many different kinds of people, you can really have a proper friendship in all aspects and not just within the one fandom, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that because I mean, the furry fandom I feel like is a really great launch pad into something much larger outside the furry fandom with a friendship, and it's just amazing to see, like for example, us with this podcast be able to really build that friendship up, and then it's just really cool to see people like form bigger friendships from the fandom, and even seeing people actually getting married because they met another in the fandom, and doing a ton of other things like collaborations, podcasts for us example, and it's just really cool to see where it goes. And that's where I mean, if there's one thing to take from this episode, it's that don't feel afraid to be social and be active. If there's someone you want to say hi to, as to if it's just to say hello, or maybe wanting to commission them or talk to them about something, don't feel afraid to say hi to that person, because the worst that can happen is they say no thank you, and a lot can happen from this saying hello. I mean, it very well could this be a casual relationship, but it could very much turn into a very close friendship over time. So I definitely encourage everyone, if there's someone in the fandom you want to say hi to or want to ask a question, don't be afraid and ask.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. So there's, you know, don't feel pressured, but honestly, if you want to talk to someone, if you think you could be friends with someone, or if you just want to say hi just for the sake of saying hi, really don't feel pressured. Obviously, don't bombard people with messages. Don't be creepy or anything.
Yes, don't be creepy.
I'm sure that's just common sense for a lot of the listeners. But honestly, just don't hesitate to put yourself out there and chat to people, and also don't feel pressured if you can't get it right straight away, because I know a lot of furries have social anxiety. A lot of us are very introverted, and sometimes you can send a message and then your brain's going back and forth thinking, did I say the wrong thing? But honestly, don't worry about it. Just take
Me
your
every
time.
day.
Yeah, me too. Just take your time. Just, you know, be yourself, and you will find friends in the fandom, because there's just so many people here.
Absolutely agree. I mean, over 99% of the furries I've met have turned out to be awesome, friendly, wonderful people, and definitely I encourage, do make friends in the furry fandom. And if you do look for friends in the furry fandom, the friends will come, and some great things will happen. I mean, there are tons of beautiful friendships that do form with the furry fandom. But that is the episode today for Fluff It. So thank you so much listening, everyone, and especially to everyone that is new. We love new people, and we're just amazed by the amount of viewership that we have already gotten. Do let us know if you do prefer us doing shorter episodes or longer episodes. That's something we were kind of talking about before recording.
Yeah.
So do let us know what you like about the podcast, what you think should be different from the podcast. I know we want to eventually do some Q&A, so we're not going to do that anytime soon, like in a whole episode, but if you have a topic or a question you really want us to answer, we might talk about it. It might spring up into a topic. So do feel free to suggest anything, and or maybe just at the very least come say hi.
Yeah, absolutely. So like we absolutely love getting feedback from everyone. All the really nice messages and comments are just
Yes.
like amazing to read or to listen to. So yeah, please do let us know if you've got any ideas. Let us know what you think to the shorter episodes versus the longer ones. I know we've done both now, and it would be really interesting. Would be really interesting to know just what people prefer. And also, like what we've discussed in this episode, always feel free to just say hi to us. I'm a very open person when it comes to people messaging me. I'm quite happy to chat to anyone, so please don't feel intimidated.
Yes, I am.
To talk to us.
Yeah, no, I'm very open to chatting with people too. We're not sharks; we don't bite. Yeah, no, do feel free to come say hi to us because we're not going to be like, no, be gone, because we're not.
Be gone.
It would contradict everything we talked about this
yeah.
episode. But thank you so much again for everyone that has tuned in. Till the next episode, or maybe even at Megaplex. Stay fluffy.
We will see you all next time. Goodbye.
Goodbye.